This demonstration. Shocking news. Joe Biden has dropped out of the presidential race. Also, a list of black jobs that Donald Trump is talking about. But before we get started with this demonstration, if I could get you to hit the like button as well as subscribe to the channel. Before we jump into this shocking demonstration, I want to read my copyright disclaimer. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. What that means is that everything that you hear in this demonstration is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Everything that you hear in this demonstration is allegedly. It's only allegedly. I want to welcome everyone to the shocking news of today. Shocking news. Joe Biden has dropped out of the presidential race. Also, a list of the black jobs that Donald Trump is talking about. Salute, big baby. Salute, big baby. Appreciate you for pulling up. Salute, big baby. It's going to be a doozy. Yes. I'm glad that before we even go any further, big baby, I'm glad that Biden went on and dropped out, because hands down, like I said in the last demonstration, big baby, Biden, he wasn't beating Trump. There are plenty of people that could probably beat Trump. Biden is not one of them. So I'm glad that Biden dropped out. I mean, it was the smart thing to do. It was the best thing to do. What do you think, big baby? Salute, Florida Queen. Appreciate you for pulling up. Salute, salute. Big baby says me too. So y'all know how we do. We're going to jump straight into this shocking news. Also, we know that Biden allegedly came down with COVID. And it's just too much on him. It's just too much on him. Big baby says no way he was going to win. It's just no way. And I just think Biden did the best thing, you know. I respect him more for dropping out than just hanging around, especially with his health condition. You know, when your health breaks down, when your health starts to deteriorate, it's really nothing that you could do. I mean, you could try, but at the end of the day, especially with dementia, that's a real serious illness. But let's jump into some legal experts, and then we're going to come and we're going to chop it up, y'all. Let's jump into some legal experts.
And that obviously is an abortion. I heard you talking about that earlier. But the real question is what happens next? And I want to bring in Democratic Senator Chris Coons of Delaware, who is a close ally of President Biden. Senator, I'm sure this is a very emotional day, a very emotional time for you. But I want to get your take just very simply on the decision that was made by President Biden today.
Well, thank you, and thanks for a chance to speak to this moment in our nation's history. Joe Biden has served our nation more than 50 years, and he has always put our country first. He has an incredible legacy of service and leadership. In 36 years in the Senate, where he chaired the Foreign Relations Committee, the Judiciary Committee, as vice president for 8 years, and now as the most consequential president of my lifetime. I still remember being at the front of the Capitol during his inaugural speech. He had inherited 3 different crises at the same moment: a deadly global pandemic that had taken millions of lives around the world and had shut down our economy, an economic crisis because of the pandemic, and a crisis of democracy because of January 6th. He was sworn in just 2 weeks after January 6th, and he gave a soaring, optimistic, hopeful speech about how if we can come together, there's nothing that can stop the United States. And I know there were folks, pundits and colleagues of mine, who thought that his call to bipartisanship, to coming together, was quaint, was outdated. And then I got to be with him in the following years as Joe Biden signed into law massive pieces of critical legislation to reinvest in our infrastructure, to rebuild our manufacturing, to confront climate change, to make our country safer from gun violence, to invest in caring for our veterans, to do more for community health than anyone in decades. His legislative accomplishments are epic. And I was very much looking forward to fighting hard for his election this fall. But there's one thing Joe Biden has done that I admire more than anything else, and that's to put our nation first. So I look forward to rolling up my sleeves and working alongside him these last 6 months. Just this coming week, he will be welcoming Prime Minister Netanyahu to Washington, and there is unfinished work to be done there. It was his proposal for a ceasefire and hostage release in Gaza that was endorsed by the UN Security Council and the G7, and that he is determined to move forward to achieve a lasting peace for Gaza and for the Israeli people. And I look forward to him accomplishing that. He's got more work to do here at home, too, in our appropriations bill, our defense authorization bill, a dozen other initiatives. And so in his last 6 months as our president and as the most senior and respected leader of our party, I know he will play a central role in the campaign this fall to make sure that Donald Trump is not returned to the White House and that our next nominee, who I hope will be Vice President Kamala Harris, is elected this fall to continue the important work that President Biden and Vice President Harris have successfully carried out these last 3.5 years.
You say you hope it's going to be Vice President Kamala Harris. Is that a question? Might it not be?
Look, I don't think there's a real question. Joe Biden chose Kamala Harris as his vice president because looking at the next generation of leadership of our party, he believed her to be the most capable and competent. He chose her so that had there been a tragedy in the last 3.5 years, she would be president. I served with her in the Senate. I've served with her as vice president. I've seen what she is capable of, and I'm confident we will come together and support Vice President Harris at our convention in Chicago this August.
So I'm wondering, Senator, what exactly the process looks like now, because Jamie Harrison, the chair of the DNC, just said this, that the party would undertake a transparent and orderly process to move forward as a united Democratic Party. What has to happen in the coming hours and in the coming days? We do understand that Vice President Harris is already on the phone talking to members of Congress, trying to shore up their support. But what does the process look like? You say it looks like this is what's going to happen, but how?
Well, look, I'm not a master of the DNC rules, but the timing makes it possible for us to still convene as a Democratic Party at our quadrennial convention in Chicago this time and to nominate for the presidency one of the folks who I believe is most qualified and capable of doing so, Vice President Harris. I will leave it to Jamie Harrison and the DNC leadership to help make sure that all of us who are delegates for Chicago understand exactly what the consequences are. But as the person who's been on the ticket with Joe Biden this entire time, my understanding is that Vice President Harris would inherit all of the staff and the field offices and the funding and the ballot access and the media access that's been secured by the Biden-Harris campaign up till now. So I believe that is what's going to happen, but I don't want to misspeak because I'm not a leader of the DNC or an expert in the rules. Given the timing, I think our president made the most important decision he could for success for this fall. I also want us to just take a moment today and reflect on his legacy before we hurtle forward to asking the question, who's next, what's going to happen next? Joe Biden has made a lasting difference for our nation, and his lifetime of service should be recognized and honored. And I look forward to a convention where we dedicate time to thanking Joe Biden for being an incredible public servant for decades and to honoring him for the lasting difference he's made. If we want to secure his legacy as president, his role as one of the most important presidents in our history, the best way to do that is to ensure that a united Democratic...
Salute Blue Devil G. Salute Blue Devil G. Not sure when and not sure how Kamala Harris will run. We're waiting for that news to pop out any minute now.
On behalf of the American people, I thank Joe Biden for his extraordinary leadership as President of the United States and for his decades of service to our country. His remarkable legacy of accomplishment is unmatched in modern history, American history, surpassing the legacy of many presidents who have served 2 terms in office. It is a profound honor to serve as his vice president, and I am deeply grateful to the president, Dr. Biden, and the entire Biden family. I first came to know President Biden through his son, Beau. We were friends from our working days together as attorney generals of our home states. As we worked together, Beau would tell me stories about his dad, the kind of father and the kind of man he was. And the qualities Beau revered in his father are the same qualities, the same values I have seen every single day in Joe's leadership as president. His honesty and integrity, his big heart and commitment to his faith and his family, and his love of our country and the American people. With this selfless and patriotic act, President Biden is doing what he has done throughout his life of service, putting the...
This is an NBC News special report. Here's Hallie Jackson.
Good day. We're continuing our breaking news coverage here on NBC News. President Biden dropping out of the 2024 presidential race, withdrawing from the ticket after weeks of pressure, both publicly and privately, from elected Democrats, and endorsing his vice president, Kamala Harris, to take over the top of the ticket. It is a significant development, an extraordinary one, but not altogether unexpected. The president himself has sounded a defiant note now for weeks, but today, in breaking news, just within the last couple of hours, he's releasing a statement saying that he believes it is in the best interest of his party and his country for him to stand down and, in his words, to focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term. We do expect to hear from President Biden at some point later this week in an address to the nation. But I want to bring in now Ryan Nobles, who's been joining us as these developments have continued to pour in this afternoon. And so much of this, Ryan, is now on the reaction from Democrats. What happens next? Does Vice President Kamala Harris end up taking the top of the ticket? She, of course, would inherit that war chest that the Biden campaign has built over the course of the last year or so. But there are others potentially who could be in the mix, and notably top Senate and House Democrats, while expressing admiration and gratitude for President Biden for what he's done, have largely stopped short of endorsing Harris as well so far, Ryan.
Yeah, and including on that list the former President Barack Obama, who's also endorsing an open process and is yet to come right out and support Vice President Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket. I think we find ourselves in a situation here, Hallie, and the one thing that seems to resonate with me more than anything in this flurry of statements that we've received from Democratic members of Congress and prominent Democratic politicians over the last 2 hours since the announcement was made by President Biden that he's not going to seek re-election is an overwhelming sense and yearning for the party to unify and to unify as soon as possible. And yes, more than have come out and said that they believe that Vice President Kamala Harris should be the eventual nominee. But you see baked into a lot of these statements a recognition that there does need to be some sort of a process, perhaps even a competition before she is just given the responsibility of taking over this party's nomination and then subsequently taking on Donald Trump in the fall election. And so how that manifests itself, it seems pretty clear that party leaders are still trying to figure out. This is uncharted territory that we find ourselves in. There hasn't been a situation like this in decades. And so whether that means that Kamala Harris, who's already made it clear that she's prepared to fight for that nomination, is challenged by someone else, they go to the convention and she wins it easily, but there is this recognition of a process that remains to be seen. No one else at this point has raised their hand and said that they want to be part of that conversation. So the early stages of this show, first of all, that Democrats seem to be somewhat relieved that President Biden has decided to exit the stage. Many of them feel they're applauding his record of service. They feel fortunate to have worked with him. They call his record as president a successful one, but they do seem happy and satisfied that he's decided to hand over the mantle to someone else. The question is, how does a Vice President Kamala Harris become the Democratic nominee? There's a logistical question that needs to be answered in terms of how that process plays itself out, Hallie. But then there's also a support question that needs to be answered. Does she have the support of the Democratic Party writ large? It seems to be an answer to both of these questions that Democratic leaders want to get answers to as soon as possible.
And Ryan, let me just read the statement from Vice President Harris that is coming into us in literally the last 5 minutes. After thanking President Biden for his service and for what he's done for this country, the Vice President says, I'm quoting her here, she says, "I am honored to have the President's endorsement, and my intention is to earn and win this nomination." She later says that she will do everything in her power to unite the Democratic Party and unite our nation to defeat Donald Trump and what she describes as his extreme Project 2025 agenda. Let me go to Monica Alba, who is live for us outside the White House here. Monica, help us understand how this came together, because the signal...
I'm going to say this real quick, y'all. I think we're looking, and I said it before, I think we're looking at our first woman president of the United States of America. Kamala Harris is going to defeat Donald Trump.
Minutes before this statement came down formally from President Biden, those who were working for him thought that he was completely committed to staying in this fight and staying in this race. And I have to tell you that even some very senior leadership last night was under the impression that the president was going to continue with his reelection effort. Even this morning, there were key surrogates who are close to the president who were on the airwaves saying there shouldn't be any debate here about a decision. He's made his decision, and that is to remain in the race. So it did come as a surprise to some, I can tell you, according to a source.
Salute, Miss Ty. Salute, Mel. Salute, Miss Ty. Salute, Mel. I see you, Blue Devil G. Kamala Harris is going to defeat Donald Trump.
Mere moments later that we saw the letter post on his social media account announcing that to the entire world. So it was very closely held. Now we know that he did have a conversation with Vice President Harris ahead of the announcement, where obviously they spoke about this. And now, as you just alluded to in that statement from the Vice President, it is clear that this larger question about how this works next is the major one. And even if President Biden has fully endorsed his vice president to be the Democratic nominee, we're seeing some signals from key Democratic leadership, from former President Obama, that there needs to be a moment here where things don't get rushed necessarily, because they want to be sure that this process also appears democratic. They want to make sure that if there were someone to come out and say, I would like to challenge Vice President Harris for this nomination, that that process could play out. And we should point out, according to somebody familiar with former President Obama's thinking, that they're going back to how this all played out in 2020, when there was an open primary, when Joe Biden was still going through that process. Even if it seemed clear that former President Obama would back Joe Biden, he waited until, at the time, Senator Bernie Sanders formally ended his candidacy, and it was clear that Joe Biden would be the presumptive nominee, and there was nobody else in the conversation, before fully backing him and saying that he would do everything he could to ensure his victory in 2020, as he did. So I think they're trying to talk about this in this larger conversation, but we know, Hallie, that the days are what cannot be long here. There are only a couple of days and weeks until they need to sort this out, with the convention coming up on August 19th. And before all of this, there was essentially going to be a virtual roll call nomination for the party even before that, sometime before August 7th. So all of this is going to probably play out in a fairly short amount of time and days, but I think that's a little bit about what you're seeing. And also from people who are very close to the former president, Barack Obama, and to President Biden now that I've spoken with, they want to be sure that this moment is about Joe Biden and about this incredibly difficult decision that he has made, and about this moment to try to take stock in what has occurred historically. And so I think the next also major moment that we could see here is when we learn more about how President Biden comes out and addresses all of this in a speech to the nation. He can't do that today because he is still positive for COVID and isolating in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, with a very sore throat.
Salute Tammy. Salute Tammy. Salute 80s, baby. Salute Tammy. Salute 80s, baby. Salute Coltan. Salute Coltan. Yes, it's true. Joe Biden has dropped out of the presidential election. We're waiting to find out what's the next procedure as far as Kamala Harris being able to run. So that's what we're waiting on now. We're waiting on the procedures as far as how does Kamala Harris go about running for the election. But yes, it's true, Joe Biden has backed out of the presidential election.
Debate, which I think will go down in history as one of the most consequential decisions for any re-election campaign, because it was the Biden team that came out and said we want to have a debate in June, we want to face Donald Trump earlier than your typical general election debate season, and because of that dismal and really poor debate performance, this larger conversation started about whether he should stay at the top of the ticket, and now here we are. And yes, nobody perhaps could have predicted that just a couple of days ago the president would then be sidelined with COVID and have to get off the campaign trail to have some of these really maybe uncomfortable and difficult and personal discussions about his future. And we know, Hallie, that some of the people who have been around him and been counseling him most closely are his family. First Lady Jill Biden has been with him for the last couple of days there in Delaware. We know he's been in touch with other family members, and as NBC News first reported a couple of days ago, we know that there were even conversations among the family about if President Biden were to make this decision, what would this exit plan look like, and what, in their words, would be befitting of a man who served the country for more than 50 years in elected office. If he were to step aside and bow out, what kind of a moment should that look like? And they really, in all those conversations, according to our sources, signaled that they wanted that to be on President Biden's own timeline. But because of the external pressure, because of the cascading calls of Democrats, of people he had worked with for years, saying he should leave the race, perhaps that timeline became a little bit more compressed because he did have COVID and because he was having these discussions with his inner circle. And ultimately he got to that point just this afternoon, we're told, and now it will be a larger conversation about the path forward. But the president is fully endorsing his vice president, and she likewise is saying in that statement, which I think is key, that she wants to earn this nomination, and so she wants to prove to the American people as well, according to people in her very close orbit, that she is the right person for this job, and she wants to make sure that then the party can rally behind her and unite in a way that they couldn't up until this point for Joe Biden. Hallie.
I'll say it again. We are looking at our first female president. Stanky Bottom says ain't nobody gonna vote for her, bruh. Oh, she's gonna get a lot of votes. She's going to get a lot of votes. Salute, Bob. Bob says the Democrat Party is collapsing. Salute, Bob. We're looking at our first woman president of the United States of America, y'all. I'm telling y'all, she's going to beat Donald Trump for the president.
And the response from these folks, because many of them are out with statements just late today, very few of them are coming out with a full-throated endorsement of Kamala Harris just yet, as you're taking a look here at those potential Democratic contenders, Ryan.
Yeah, in fact, to your point, Hallie, the one person on that list that you mentioned, I believe you mentioned him, was Mark Kelly, who is a potential running mate for Kamala Harris. He comes from a swing state of Arizona. He obviously has a very compelling life story as a former astronaut, the husband of Gabby Giffords, who was nearly murdered in an assassination attempt when she was a member of Congress, now represents the state of Arizona. He is out with a full-throated endorsement of Kamala Harris. It says that she is the right person to defeat Donald Trump and lead our country into the future, and that she has his support for the nomination. So Mark Kelly's a potential name on that list. You mentioned others. I think a strong possibility could be Roy Cooper, the governor of North Carolina. North Carolina is a state that Barack Obama was able to win twice, but Donald Trump has gone on to win twice. It's a state that Democrats would love to put in play during this potential presidential election, especially if they start to bleed a little bit with that northern blue wall, the kind of Midwest Rust Belt wall, which Joe Biden was able to sweep last time around. Gretchen Whitmer, the
Salute positive vibes. Salute positive vibes. How y'all feeling? I'm going to be coming to the chat in about 2 more minutes, y'all. Salute positive vibes. I will be coming to the chat in about 4 or 5 more minutes.
Who is a moderate Democrat, comes from what is a ruby red state would be at least a compelling story, right? To have somebody from the middle of the country, represents a lot of working class white voters in particular. That's an area where Democrats have seen their numbers bleed quite a bit. He would also be someone that would be a great compliment to Kamala Harris, and also somebody who is young. And it's interesting, Hallie, how just in the last 3 hours, the conversation of this race has flipped completely upside down. Democrats were trying to convince the country for quite a while that an 81-year-old man was fully capable of still running this country. Now, they find themselves running against a nominee who, pretty much under any circumstance, with any of these names that have been floated as a possible nominee, will be much older than any of them. So you could have a young, dynamic ticket when you take in Kamala Harris and Andy Beshear, and juxtapose that against someone like Donald Trump. Of course, J.D. Vance is someone who is also young. So there are a long list of potential opportunities for Democrats here. The direction that they go in will play a big role in how this process plays itself out going forward. And I do have to say, Hallie, and I think this is an important thing to keep in the back of our minds as we continue to report this out. It's really congressional Democrats that drove this process, right?
That's right.
There obviously was a long list of concerns among the Democratic hierarchy the day after that debate, which is now almost a month ago. But it was congressional Democrats who started sounding the alarms right away. I remember being on the air with you when you interviewed Congressman Lloyd Doggett, who stuck his nose out there first as the one saying that the party should seriously consider moving in a different direction. And then it was a slow drip of members of Congress who kept this an active conversation. When President Biden came out the Monday after the debate and forcefully said that he was staying in the race, that wasn't enough for congressional Democrats. After the assassination attempt on former President Trump, when it looked like there was going to be another opportunity for these calls to subside and perhaps President Biden could hang on to the nomination, congressional Democrats were not satisfied. They were the ones that were looking at their internal polling that was blaring red lights of concern, not just on the national ticket, but for these down ballot races, and the real possibility that if President Biden stayed at the top of the ticket, they were in danger of losing the White House.
All right, y'all, let's chop it up. Salute, Miss James. I see you, Miss James. Let's chop it up. Miss James says Jasmine Crockett for vice president. I like Jasmine Crockett. I done a demonstration a few months ago on Jasmine Crockett. What are y'all thoughts? Tammy says her vice president Kamala. Ms. James says, let President Biden leave with dignity. Aging and dementia is no joke, right? And I'm happy that he's able to just, back out. No disrespect, but it's useless, along with the possibility of dementia, COVID, and I've had COVID a couple times. It's going to shut you down. So now what we have to follow what's next. Like what's the procedures? What is the procedures now that Biden is no longer going to run? Will the Democratic Party, will they just let Kamala go ahead and run? Or will, like they said, will they put her up against some other candidates, some governors of different states? My opinion, and y'all can help me out with this. Y'all could disagree with me or agree. But in my opinion, I just say, look, just go ahead, let Kamala do her thing. I believe that Kamala can defeat Donald Trump. Now, will she make a better president than Donald Trump? Hey, who knows? Who knows? Let me say it again. I think Kamala Harris can defeat Donald Trump. I think that she got what it takes to defeat him. Now, will she make a better president than Donald Trump? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. You know, we'll see that as things play out. Some of y'all might say, Shank, why are you feeling that Kamala could defeat Donald Trump? I'll tell you why. Because believe it or not, a lot of people still don't want to vote for Trump. You had those that were going to vote for Biden, but then many of them just decided to sit this election out. Well, now that Kamala possibility is going to run, those people that was going to sit it out because they didn't want to vote for Biden and they definitely wasn't voting for Trump. Now a fresh face is on the ballot, Kamala. So now those people that were going to sit it out, now they're going to vote for Kamala. Ms. Jam says, I believe she has been in training for this position for the last couple of years behind the scene. I think so too. Now, there's some things, you know, on her report card that, you know, but this thing's on all of them report cards. They all got F's on their report cards. T. Lee says, sorry, you really think she can win? I feel bad for you. I really think that she can beat Donald Trump. I mean, don't get it twisted. I'm just going to be honest with you. It's not hard to beat Donald Trump. However, you just have to look at who he was up against. He was up against Biden. It's not hard to beat Trump. It's not hard to beat Trump in a presidential election. And I'll say it again. Kamala has that you know, like Michelle Obama, she's intellectual. She's very high educated. She knows what she's talking about. But Michelle don't have that to knock out Donald Trump. I don't know where you've been at, T. Lee, but follow me on this demonstration because I'm going to be playing some clips of Kamala Harris. And I want you to pay attention to Kamala body language. I want you to pay attention to her eyes. I want you to pay attention to her choice of words. I really want you to pay attention to her demeanor. Positive says Shank likes women who have to them. You got to have that You got to have that in you. T. Lee says, wow, bro, I'm sorry you're that deep into the Democratic Party, but if you think she's intellectual, you need to go watch some of her videos. She can barely say 2 sentences without cackling. See, you over there. I'm talking about Michelle Obama. I'm not talking about Kamala Harris as far as being intellectual. And if you think Michelle Obama isn't intellectual, if you think that Michelle Obama isn't intelligent, then you need to exit the chat. I'm talking about Michelle Obama being intelligent. I ain't talking about Kamala. Pump your brakes, T. Lee. Pump your brakes for a few seconds. Ms. Jan says, Trump said Kamala is crazy. I can't wait for her to show her juice during the debate. That's what I'm talking about, Ms. Jans. You understand what I'm saying? Positive vibes. Somebody better warn T. Lee. I will get on one with the quickness. Positive vibes, please warn T. Lee. Don't come for me right now. Tell him to come for me later on in this demonstration. But don't you come for me right now, T. Lee, because I will get one. I will get on one very fast. Salute James. James says, Shank, I don't trust her. There's something about her. And you know what, James? I feel you. I feel you. I don't trust her either. I don't trust her either. However, you play baseball. Everybody know about baseball. What they say in baseball, batter up. She's the next batter that's up. So we getting ready to find out now if she's going to strike out. I'm talking about Kamala Harris. We're going to find out if she's going to strike out. We're going to find out if she's going to hit a single, a double, a triple. We're going to find out if she's going to hit a home run. We're getting ready to find out because batter up. Johnny S. Salute, Johnny. Johnny says the key to the debates is not burning the ops, but focusing on the questions for the people. That's where I'm at, Johnny. That's where I'm at. So now let's look at a debate. Let's look at a presidential debate between Kamala. We pretty much already know Trump going to bring it. He's going to bring it. And Trump has a sense of humor. So with his sense of humor, he's going to ask some tough questions for Kamala Harris. He's really going to ask some tough questions. However, he's going to keep it, leaning a little bit to the left, leaning a little bit to the right. Now, what do you think Kamala questions is going to be when it comes to asking Donald Trump? And remember what I said about a woman. It don't make a difference what race. It don't make a difference what religion. It don't make a difference the age. When a woman knows her ish, when a woman knows what she's talking about, that woman is going to be hell. I dealt with enough women. A woman that knows her ish, a woman that knows what she's talking about, she's going to be hell. And I'm telling y'all, pay close attention to Kamala. James says Trump's vice president is the wild card. Good point. Marty, salute Marty. Marty says it's over and new president is Sir Donald Trump. Strong possibility. I'm not saying that Kamala is definitely going to beat Trump. I'm not saying she's definitely going to beat him. I'm saying it's going to be a long fight. It ain't going to be no Trump and Kamala. I can promise you that. Whoever wins, if Kamala defeats Trump, it's going to be Kamala, it's going to be Trump. If Trump defeats her, it's going to be Trump, it's going to be Kamala. Ms. James says the only thing he can bring up when she was a prosecutor in California, but she could come back with his felon title. There you go, Ms. James. There you go. Johnny says Kamala is the underdog. But there you go, Ms. James. Are y'all paying attention to Ms. James' comments? Ms. James saying the only thing Trump can bring up is when she was a prosecutor in California. But Ms. James saying Kamala can come back with his felon convictions. And that's true. Marty says she doesn't bring anything to the table. She brings a sense of change. And you got to understand, when it comes to a change, if you looking for a change, man, you're going to do whatever you got to do for that change. Vice versa. If I'm looking for a change, I'm doing whatever I got to do to get that change. And right now, that's what the American people need. Am I lying? Am I lying? Drop a one. Drop a one if y'all think that America needs a change. Drop a 2 if y'all think that America needs to stay the same. Now, if you're one of the ones that is saying America needs a change, that's Kamala. Because if Trump wins, Trump is going to give us the same thing that he gave us the last 4 years. You know that. If Kamala wins, Kamala brings in a change. You can't get around that. Scotty says, as an outsider, America is feared and respected back then, but after 2020, all the clowns showed up and made America a big circus show. I agree with you, Scotty. I agree with Scotty. Ms. Jam says time for a change. No more good old boy clubs. And that's what the majority of the American people are saying. They're saying the same thing that Ms. Jams is saying. Time for a change. No more good old boy clubs. Marty says she's not going to be the first woman president. End of it. Kristen says explain why Kamala, Florida Queen, dropped the 1. Tammy dropped the 1. Change is always good. Miss Tari says facts. Rico, salute Rico. Rico says They kept Biden on too long. Too many voters already decided Trump is going to be president again. And you probably got a point. You got a point, Rico. I will say that. I will agree with you on that, Rico. Canister says Trump is like a bomb, can't trust. Positive, drop the 1. Mel says it's not what she is bringing to the table, but correcting what's already on the table is Project 25. I agree with Mel. I definitely agree with Mel. So once again, the American people, believe it or not, you still got the good old boys. You still got, but it's a minority of them. You know, it's a minority of them that's still with that good old boy system. You got a majority of the people, they looking for a change. I'm looking for a change. And I'm sure most of y'all are looking for a change. Canister says Indians know how to rule. Kamala have their DNA. I believe in her. We're going to see. Shout out to the Indian side of the human family. Shout out to the Indian side of the human family. Canister says Indians know how to rule. Kamala have their DNA. I believe in her. Let's go back to some more legal advice. Then we're going to go over this list of jobs that Donald Trump is referring to when he talks about the black jobs. And I got news for y'all. Y'all are going to be shocked when y'all find out some of these jobs that made the list. Tammy says, I've been telling y'all about that Project 2025. We ain't ready for that. And yes, you have, Tammy. Shout out to Tammy. Big shout out to Tammy, because Tammy has been telling us about that Project 2025. Let's go back to some more legal experts, y'all.
Was made within the last couple of hours or as early as late as this morning.
Joe Biden quite well and has spent a lot of time with her. She is somebody who is obviously incredibly influential when it comes to her husband's thinking and decision making based on all of our reporting over the course of many, many years. She's his spouse. She is somebody who is intimately involved in the decision making processes. Help us with some insight into where her head may be at here, because presumably, and I don't have reporting to back this up, I want to be clear, but presumably Joe Biden would not have made this move if Jill Biden had not been backing him here, it seems to me.
I think that's right, and I'm only speculating at this point, but from what I know and what I observed in my 3 years with her, and what has been reported, a lot of these decisions that the president makes are not whether it's Jill alone or just Valerie or just Mike Donilon. A lot of these decisions are sort of consensus by committee. So if Dr. B had bought into the political case that was being made that there was no path, and she was reassured by Val and people like Senator Dodd or Mark Gittenstein and Ted Kaufman, who, by the way, was the one to tell the president that he had to leave the race in 1987, if all of them sort of communicated to Jill that there was no path, she would be on board with that. She trusts them, and I'm sure she accepted their recommendations.
Michael LaRosa, we're glad to have you on. Michael, thank you very much on a significant day. We'll ask you to come back if you end up hearing anything else from your contacts still in and around the campaign. Thank you. Yeah. I want to bring back in now our Capitol Hill correspondent, Ryan Nobles, because Ryan, in the brief interlude since you and I last spoke, just in the last 20 minutes or so, we have seen more and more elected Democrats in the House of Representatives coming out and supporting Kamala Harris as the Democratic nominee. I'm talking Eric Swalwell. I'm talking about Debbie Dingell, who suggested that she would as well. Congressman Jim Clyburn, an influential voice in the party, a close ally of President Biden's, coming out and saying that he also enthusiastically backs the vice president. Talk to us about the dynamics at play here.
Yeah, and another one, just as you were bringing me in, Hallie, Senator John Ossoff of Georgia, which is a key battleground. He also putting his support behind Vice President Harris right now, calling her absolutely the right candidate to defeat Donald Trump and unite our country. She's prepared, ready to win, and has my full support. So it is important to point out, anybody that has come out and made a statement about President Biden and has also backed someone to replace him, every single one of those people have backed Kamala Harris. They've said she is the right choice to lead the party going into November. But that's not everybody. There is a pretty significant universe, a very significant influential universe of Democrats who have yet to say that they're supporting any candidate, and some have come right out and said that there needs to be an open process. And I can tell you, Hallie, from my conversations with both elected Democrats, Democratic operatives, Democratic aides, the overwhelming sense that I'm getting is that every Democrat, even those that support Kamala Harris, do believe that it is important to make this an open process. In other words, no one is interested in a coronation. They actually feel that that could hurt Kamala Harris if she ends up winning the nomination. And so what you see Democrats kind of doing in real time here is processing how they make that process work. How do you make the convention one where it is open to anybody who is interested in running, that they get a fair shot at the nominating process to convince the delegates that they might be the best candidate out there, but perhaps Kamala Harris comes into that situation with an overwhelming advantage and she ends up winning the nomination, but does so through a contested contest. That's not an easy feat to pull off. That's going to be very difficult for Democrats to try and thread that needle of making it easy for her to become the candidate that everyone unites behind, but at the same time opening it up to anyone involved. So that's what you see them.
Drop a one. Drop a one in the chat if y'all think Kamala Harris will defeat Donald Trump. Drop a 2 if y'all think Donald Trump will defeat Kamala Harris. Drop a 1 if you think Kamala Harris will beat Donald Trump. Drop a 2 if you think Trump will beat Kamala Harris.
Try and drum up as much support as possible. So I do think this is something that you're going to see Democrats earnestly want to come to a conclusion as soon as possible. Do they settle on a process as early as August 1st, which is the date that they currently have set for the virtual roll call, and Kamala Harris goes into the August convention as the party's nominee? Or do they wait and delay that process, go all the way up to the convention, allow people to make speeches on the House floor or on the floor of the convention, and go through all that? That's something that remains to be seen. But to your first question, anyone that has come out...
You're right, Ms. James. Why are they making her go through all of that? You're right, Ms. James.
Replace Joe Biden. Every single one of them have said that they support Kamala Harris. And I do think that's significant and shows how much support she has right now and why, at this point, it's her nomination to lose.
Ryan Nobles, thank you very much. I'm going to let you continue to do your reporting and make your calls, as I know you're doing. And I want to bring in NBC News Washington correspondent Yamiche Alcindor. Yamiche, I understand that you have some new reporting now on all of this. What's up?
That's right. I just got off the phone with CDC Chair Stephen Horseman, who is, of course, a congressman in Nevada. Now, he is someone who just got off the phone with the Vice President, Kamala Harris, which means she's there calling people who have endorsed her. The CDC PAC has already endorsed her. He described that phone call to me that lasted about 5 minutes as her reaching out to him. She told me that she told him specifically she wants to earn this and she will win. And he took her saying that she wanted to earn this, not that there was going to be this big sort of mini primary that some have talked about, but that she wanted to make sure that she had the delegates that she needed and she had the support of the party, because of course now that we're going into the convention, it's going to be a lot of the delegates who are going to be voting for her. So my understanding is that she is already sort of shoring up support here. And in talking to him, he also talked to me about this being an emotional call. He told me at one point he didn't know if he should call her Madam Vice President or Madam Nominee. And he said that, you know, apart from, of course, this being a big moment for President Biden and really his legacy and passing the torch, he also said this is a moment where he can pause and tell his daughter, a little black girl, that there might be likely a black woman at the top of the Democratic ticket for the first time in history. He said that was not lost on him as the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. I also want to tell you that I've been talking to a number of allies of the vice president. They have a lot of tasks at hand, and the to-do list is long, but they are ticking through it. First up is that they're looking at new vice presidential nominees. They're talking about a number of people, including possibly Senator Mark Kelly. The other name is Gretchen Whitmer, who of course is the governor of Michigan. Andy Beshear is another name that I've heard. Mitchell Landrieu is another name that I've heard. So they're really going through and looking at who now, if Vice President Kamala Harris becomes the presumptive nominee, if she ends up being at the top of the ticket officially, as a number of Democrats now we see are endorsing her to be, there's already the conversation of sort of who would be her VP. I also have been talking to people who say on that to-do list is shoring up donors, because in the weeks after this debate performance by President Biden, there are a number of donors who froze giving to the party and froze giving to the campaign. I just talked to someone who said now donors are emailing, they're excited again. They're saying, look, this might be hard, but we need to make up for lost ground. In some ways, the coffers are opening back up. Another thing that I'm hearing is that there's really going to be a campaign agenda for how to go forward. She's been on the road, Vice President Kamala Harris, a lot of times it's crisscrossing the nation, but I'm told that that's going to really kick up in the next few days and next few weeks here as she now, of course, sets her sights on both shoring up the nomination, but also making the case as a prosecutor and as someone who has been very critical of former President Trump that she can beat him and that she's the best candidate to beat him. Hallie.
Yamiche, thank you very much. Our chief political analyst, Chuck Todd, is joining us now. So, Chuck, pick up on that thought here. What does this process look like from a very practical nuts and bolts perspective? In other words, as we look ahead to, let's say, the next week, Chuck, we know that at some point we will hear from President Biden himself. He has said that he would do that he would address the nation. That is going to be a critical moment, really, in modern political history right now. After that, where does this go, right? If Harris continues to rack up the endorsement, whether she does end up at the top of the ticket or not. I mean, she's got to select a running mate. We've talked about some of these names who could be in the mix for that position. Where do you see this going?
Well, there's two things. Let me get you on one technical. If somebody wants to challenge her for the nomination inside the process, there is an official process. You need 300 signatures, just like you would get on a ballot, 300 signatures from delegates, from the current delegate field. We'll know in the next 24 hours whether anybody not named Harris is making calls to see if they can do that. So that's just something to keep an eye on in the next 24 hours. But I think she needs to have a very deliberate and methodical VP search. Because there isn't going to be sort of a up-down by the voters about her, I think it's an opportunity. It's a way for her to showcase some of the people that may be part of her administration if she wins. But she really needs to bond with this person. So she needs to take her time and, we're going to be harassing all these candidates and following them. And that's always annoying to these candidates who would like to be able to have conversations without speculation flying up in the air. But, I think we'll go back to sort of the previous way this used to be done, where you would see the nominee to be, the presumptive nominee, in this case, we may be calling her that pretty soon, meeting with various, maybe we'll see secret flights come into National or Dulles that we'll have to keep an eye on things like that. But she really needs to, because I think this is going to define her. It's going to define her ideologically, and it's going to define her culturally. And that's why this is going to be an extraordinary important first decision with her. So I wouldn't rush it, and I would almost be a bit as open as they're comfortable being about it. Go ahead and let us see who she's interviewing, see who she's meeting with. Throw in an Admiral McRaven on there. She may not end up picking him, but she ought to make him part of the interview process. Throw in some interesting wild cards in there, because again, she's introducing herself to the country at an important time. She doesn't have many things to introduce herself. The VP selection process is one of them.
Chuck, thank you very much. Monica Alba is joining us now as well. And Monica, I know that you've been working the phones here on what is a decision that seemed to come both inevitably and suddenly, if something can be both of those two things.
I think that's a perfect way to describe it, Hallie.
All right, y'all, let's get back to the chat. Let's see what the chat is saying. Joey saying so is Biden. Ms. Jam says bring in young, beautiful, smart, intelligent Jasmine Crockett for vice president. She will be next generation for change. Both of them. And I think, and y'all could correct me if I'm wrong. Salute Eye of the Storm. Eye of the Storm says Harris and whomever 2024. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just going to throw this out there. I think that it's time. And when I say woman, it could be any woman of any race, creed, or religion or color. I think that it's time to at least, once again, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that it's time to let a woman become the president. That's just my opinion. And the reason why is because when we don't give women the opportunity to make changes, we cheat ourselves. It's like you in a relationship, okay? Now, you walking around with your chest on swole as a man, right? But you're not giving your woman an opportunity to bring in new ideas, all right? Salute, Courtney. I see y'all. The Storm says you are correct, and we all about to see that come November 29th. November 24th. Joey says you're lagging, bro. Jonathan says no. Courtney says, so will you vote for her, Shank? Depending on the presidential debate between Trump and Kamala, I'll decide then. If she gives him, if she's saying some things that I want to hear, I'm voting for Kamala. Tiny says, you sound like Snoop Dogg. Appreciate that. Jonathan says, my woman don't run it. She never will. Joey says, sure, but not Biden's side piece. The Storm says that debate will be legendary. The debate definitely will be legendary. And that's what I'm waiting on. That's what I'm waiting on. Because I feel like as much as I do like Trump, let me just speak on it. As much as I do like Trump, and I said it on the last demonstration, the only person, I don't think that there's a man that can defeat Trump. The only person that will defeat Trump is going to be a woman. I don't think Michelle could beat Trump because Michelle don't got that Kamala got that Kamala, when I say that meaning the type of chick that'll take her earrings off, take her high heels off and put on some J's, let her hair down, or wrap her hair up, ain't concerned if she break a nail or two. And that's what Kamala has. Kamala has that Rico says, nope, not after Biden. Let Trump do his second term done, then a woman can have a shot. The Storm says, like, LOL, you love that orange. Hey, the Storm, I ain't fooling with you, bro. Go ahead. Courtney says, Trump is not smart. He will get embarrassed. By Kamala, yes, Courtney. And that's what I'm saying. See, Hillary, the only thing that he had over Hillary was the emails. If it wasn't for them emails, Hillary would have been able to get out on Trump, but he had her. You know what I mean? Those emails was Hillary's kryptonite. So what do Trump have over Kamala? Y'all let me know. Courtney says, I am all for Gavin Newsom, Hakeem Jeffries. Jersey says, beating. What do Trump have over Kamala? And then we're going to go back to the legal experts. And before I let y'all get out of here, we're going to go over these black jobs that Trump is talking about. And I got news for y'all. It's shocking. So make sure y'all hang around for these black jobs that Trump has been talking about. It's going to shock y'all when I reveal some of them to y'all. Biden, Rico says Biden was already so weak. It's time for some strength. Jersey says Trump. Courtney says positive vibes. Hey, boo, don't you start roasting me either, Courtney. Positive vibes. You and Courtney better not start roasting me either. Salute, Miss Groovy. I see you, Miss Groovy. Salute, Miss Groovy. What do you think, Miss Groovy, when it comes to Trump and Kamala? Do Trump have anything on Kamala? Miss Jam says the only thing that he got on her is her days when she was a prosecutor, but then she gonna come back with those felony convictions. Out of the Storm says them black jobs will be in or near a field not in his administration. Salute Logan. Appreciate the super chat, Logan. Salute Logan. Logan says Trump knows all about women who sleeps to the top. Drop a one if y'all think Kamala slept her way to the top. I don't think that Kamala slept her way to the top. I think that the reason why Biden got Kamala to be his vice president was because that was the only way Biden was going to beat Trump that last election. Ms. Jam says, what jobs in Texas with Tulsa and manufacturing in Detroit to build cars? I think when it comes to the jobs that Trump was talking about, I think that it went over a lot of people's heads. I think we got in our feelings most of the times. We always do. As soon as somebody mentioned something, especially about black people, we automatically get on the defense. And especially a white person that we don't like. And if it's a white person that we like, we good. But if it's a white person that we don't like, we automatically get on the defense. Out of the Storm says, yeah, he knows all. His ex taught him something. Courtney says Trump had the opportunity to choose a black vice president, but he skipped over them because he don't F with y'all. Miss Groovy dropped the 2. So Trump don't F with us. He don't F with us, right, Courtney? But he goes to the hood. He goes to the black churches, and he goes to the black churches in the hood. I done that demonstration a couple days ago. Trump was in the hood. You do know that, right, Courtney? Trump was in the hood. Trump was at the Church's Chicken on 8 Mile in Detroit. You do know that, right? I think he gets a bad rep, and I think most people uses the race card when it comes to Trump. If Trump wasn't running for president, nobody wouldn't even bring anything up about Trump being racist. Jersey says it's not even the fact that she's black. We're just not quite ready for a female president. We wasn't ready for a black president, Jersey. We wasn't ready for a black man to be a president. The time is now for a woman president. Out of the Storm says he gets the rap he deserves. Courtney says he definitely does not F with y'all. He knows how to act, and he does what he needs to do to get votes. They all do that, Courtney. They all do that. Ms. Jan says Trump won't give you an executive job. Think back to Apprentice. That brother clearly won, but he gave it to that other boy. Logan says Trump and the hood. Ish, is he kicking it with GDK? I don't know which gang he was banging with, but he definitely was in the hood in Detroit. Ms. Groovy says Biden chose Kamala because she is a sorority and they were going to vote for her, and she's a woman, and that vote was powerful. Facts. That's facts. That's facts. And that's facts. That's facts. So what are y'all thoughts on Trump making reference to the immigrants taking black jobs? Because that was the content that he used it in, as far as the illegal immigrants coming to this country and getting black jobs. Out of the Storm says, thanks, Ms. Groovy. Tracy says, salute, Tracy. I see you, Tracy. Tracy says, we'll see when they debate if she chooses when Trump goes low, she going to go low with him, or she going to go high and keep it safe. I think she going to go low. I think she going to get down with him. James says, Shank, how many blacks has Trump pardoned and how many blacks Kamala put away? Good point, James. You got me with that one, James. Did y'all hear what James said? James says, Shank, how many blacks has Trump pardoned and how many blacks Kamala put away? He got me with that one. Mel says he has to find someone with the same agenda and who can control. Look at Ben Carson. He will never be the same. Good point, Mel. Logan says Trump should have picked Clinton vice president. Just imagine the chaos. Tammy says, isn't Trump an immigrant? Eye of the Storm says gloves off the next debate. And I can't wait, Eye of the Storm. That's going to be a legendary debate. Trump and Kamala? Oh, man. Ms. Groovy says Trump had that hotel in Atlantic City because he likes and knows hoes. He married several of them. That's what he stacked the hotel with for his money buddies. You got a point, Ms. Groovy. Jersey says immigrants who don't pay taxes shouldn't be allowed to take no jobs. If they start paying taxes, that's a different story. And that's a good point, Jersey. That's a good point. Jonathan says, good job. What he's referring to the immigrants, and I want y'all to pay close attention to me. I want y'all to listen, okay? Logan says Trump's ancestor is an immigrant. It's not about immigrants either way. It's about the insane amount of illegal alien border crossings. These people are not showing up at Ellis Island with papers. That's true. That's true. Now, when Trump talks about these black jobs, of course, most people went off. He's not referring to a certain job as only being for a black person. Okay, let's say a janitorial job. Believe it or not, there are white people that are janitors. There are Mexican. There are Italians. Janitorials are all different kind of nationalities. He's not saying it as far as a certain job description. Let me see if Mel's saying the same thing I'm saying. Is he talking about the jobs the immigrants are taking that could be for black convicted felonies? He's 34 times. Exactly. So now, and also what you'll have is, you'll have the immigrants that'll come to this country. We got to keep in mind, the dollar is worth, I believe, double back in Mexico and those other third world countries. So imagine an immigrant coming to the States, and imagine a job that this black person has. But now with the immigrants coming here, and this is a known fact. They pay the immigrants minimum wage. Am I lying? So you might have this black person that will work this job for $15, $16, $17 an hour. Here comes the immigrant that's going to work it for $8 or $9, because those $8, $9 American money, when they send that back home, that $8 or $9 will become $27, $35 in their country. 800 Lane says, C West 224. Tracy says what he was referring to is the lower paying jobs that most blacks are not willing to take. And so immigrants are willing to come over and replace people who don't want to take those jobs. And that's facts. And we're going to get into some of those jobs. That's facts. Logan says, out of the storm, Trump already was president for 4 years, bro. We have already seen what he does. Rico says, real facts, Shank. Roman says, right. Did people forget 2016? Make our free. And that's the black jobs. But we got to stop being in our feelings just because we don't like Trump. We missing a lot of important things. Believe it or not, we're missing a lot of opportunities because we don't like Trump. Do y'all know over the years how many opportunities that we all missed out on because we didn't like this person? Do y'all know many of us missed out on a education because we didn't like the teacher. I was one of those. And I hit myself upside the head so many times, like, damn. The only reason why I didn't go to Miss Donaldson class was because I didn't like her. The only reason why I didn't go to Miss Tuck class, because I didn't like her. And I robbed my own self out of an education. All because I didn't like certain teachers. So when it comes to Trump, that's just how we got to look at it. Is he racism? Is he racist? Is he prejudiced? You know, do we say things that, you know, we disagree of? But at the end of the day, is he making opportunities for us? Is he setting up opportunities for us to become successful? And that same scenario goes to Kamala. For those that don't like Kamala, is she setting up opportunities? Is she giving us opportunities? Eclipse says black people do want to do these jobs, just not for $8 an hour. And that's what I'm saying, and that's what we're saying. So for the immigrants, for my immigrants that come to this country, and y'all may look down on us and wonder why we don't take certain jobs. It's because of the pay. Like I said, we don't have a country. We don't have a country that we could send our American dollars to and triple it. Y'all do. Y'all come from them third world countries, so y'all could take the $8 minimum wage job and send it back home, and it's going to triple. So y'all are in a different situation that we're in. So the jobs, he wasn't referring to it like I said, a specific job. Like, all right, black people only do this. Black people only do that. Because the last time I checked, black people, when we're given an opportunity to do any job, a black man, a black woman, and a black child. But a black man and a black woman, if we're given that opportunity to perform any job, we can do the job better than anybody. Vice versa. They can do a job better than us. But my point is, the reason why black people don't have certain jobs, believe it or not, I'm a black man. I run circles around a Mexican. I had plenty of Mexicans look at me and say, you sure you don't got Mexican in your blood? So don't get it twisted. Black people can work harder than Mexicans. Black people can work harder than anybody. It's just we're not given certain opportunities. That's why. So that's why we're behind in the whole American race when it comes to education. Black people don't get the proper education. Since day one, they wouldn't allow us to get a better education than them. To this day, they still deny us education. When it comes to the jobs, certain jobs, they keep us out of certain jobs. So it's not that black people can't perform those jobs. It's just they keep us out of them jobs. And they keep their people in those jobs. They ain't going to give certain jobs to us. Let's get back to, because I got behind in the chat. We don't know because Kamala. Let's go back to the legal experts on Kamala, y'all, and then we're going to come back to the jobs. We're going to come back to the jobs.
It's pretty hard to see how somebody could overcome Kamala Harris's advantage in getting this nomination at this point. Who she might pick for her number 2, though, pretty important, right? Because she needs to balance out this ticket. She comes at this as a younger generation. This is a generational change for the Democratic Party, but there's obviously concern about whether she would be able to appeal to those Midwestern, battleground states, which are really key for Democrats if they want to beat Donald Trump. So you hear people talking about, as you put it up here on the screen, people like Roy Cooper, people like Andy Bashir, possibly a military officer. You hear names like Bill McRaven, somebody who might appeal to people who might feel nervous about Vice President Harris, and that process is really only beginning. A lot of people have been talking about it, but from her point of view, she hasn't been able to have a kind of real vetting and a real deliberation without looking like she was being disloyal to President Biden. So for her, while I'm sure she's been thinking about this, I'm sure there have been conversations, the process is only now going to begin.
Peter Baker, thank you very much. Appreciate you being with us. I know that you and your team have a lot on your plates as well ahead in the next few days. You're looking, of course, at the background of Vice President Kamala Harris, a former prosecutor who rose to become California's Attorney General and was elected to the Senate in 2016. She, of course, ran for the White House herself in 2019 in that particular election and ended up as Joe Biden's running mate in the White House now. I want to bring in NBC News presidential historian Michael Beschloss. Michael, we're glad to have you on today, and it is so difficult as we are quite literally over the course of the last, 3.5 hours now, writing the first draft of history live on national television here, given a significant moment for President Biden. Help pull us out of the weeds for a second here, how you see this more broadly and the historical context for this.
Well, I think what people have been saying this last week is that, Joe Biden was hanging in there and might he stay on even if he didn't really have a chance to win this election, knowing that the alternative would be Donald Trump, who had a very different set of ideas for this country. And what he proved today was that he was willing to give up power in order, from his point of view, I think, to save democracy. I'm not suggesting that Joe Biden is George Washington, not even his family would say that. But George Washington, after 2 terms, could have stayed in office probably for the rest of his life. There were no term limits in the 1790s. And George Washington gave up the presidency, said, I'm going to go back to Mount Vernon because I want to establish the precedent that in our American democracy, presidents do not try to hang on forever. They pass power peacefully. That's the unique part of our democracy. So that's the tradition. The other thing, Hallie, briefly, is that in recent years, I think there are 2 parallels to this. 1952, Harry Truman, incumbent president, end of March 1952, pulled out of the race for another term unexpectedly. 1968, LBJ, Lyndon Johnson, did the same thing, March of 1968, at a time that he was being challenged by Robert Kennedy and Eugene McCarthy. This is an unusual day. This kind of thing almost never happens in American history. Everyone should watch carefully because you'll remember where you were when you got this news.
Well, that is for sure. Michael Beschloss, thank you very much for that. I know that Yamiche Alcindor remembers where she was when she got this news. Sprinting to a camera, Yamiche, because this obviously a hugely significant moment and one that puts Kamala Harris in the political spotlight, a place where she has experience, of course, over the course of the last decade or so. But this is different for her. This is a pivotal moment, not just for her politically, but for the nation. And she is at the center of it, Yamiche.
That's right. This is at the center. And I can remember the moment where I heard this news because I was literally throwing my baby into my husband's hands and running to a camera. Hallie, I know you would understand what that's like. I want to tell you that, and someone who has followed Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, for years now, she is someone who has really made a career out of breaking glass ceilings as being first. She was the district attorney of San Francisco. She was the first Black Attorney General from California. She also is someone who was only the 2nd Black woman in the history of the Senate to be a senator, of course, representing California. And of course, she became the first Black woman to be vice president, as well as the first South Asian woman to be vice president. We should talk a little bit about her background. I was just there with her yesterday when she did a fundraiser in Massachusetts, and she talked about her bio while she was talking to donors just yesterday before this news broke. She talked about the fact that her parents were civil rights activists that met while being activists and really really raised her with this sense of human rights being a forefront of what was sort of a focus of their family. Her mother was a cancer researcher. She has, of course, this background of parents who have really just talked to her a lot about public service. And that's vice president. There were a couple years where people were really questioning sort of what she was doing and whether or not she could find her footing in that role. But over the last few years, she's really focused on a number of issues, but one big one is abortion and abortion rights. She's crisscrossed this country talking about that, and she's talked about that not just as sort of a woman and as a leader in this country, but she talked about it because her background is also, of course, as a prosecutor. She talked a lot about the fact that in a number of cases in her career, she dealt with women who were victims of sexual violence. So for her, talking about the issue of choice and talking about abortion, she talked a lot about sort of knowing this from the sort of court standpoint, the sort of criminal justice standpoint. She's also someone who has made a career talking about criminal justice, prosecuting cases like that dealt with sexual violence. I also think about the fact that when she was a senator, she was someone who was seen as a sort of rising star in the Democratic Party. So, of course, only after a couple years in the Senate, she ran for president. She ultimately did not win the nomination, but she was someone who talked a lot about race and justice while she was running. Ultimately, while she was not successful in that campaign, she, of course, then was chosen to be the vice president. And one thing I think that we talk about, sort of her personal background, she's someone who is a stepmother to a number of children, but also she is someone who had a personal relationship with Beau Biden because they were both in the criminal justice sphere. So she's a robust background here. And of course, now in this significant moment where she might be the first Black woman to be at the top of a major party's ticket, to be the first Black woman to be, of course, the Democratic nominee. This is a moment that she says, and this is a moment that I should say she's talked about sort of being ready for these big moments. And one thing that she constantly says and talks about is her mother told her, if you're the first, make sure you're not the last. It's a statement that she makes over and over again when she talks to crowds about her biography. So she's someone who has a sense of history and has a sense of sort of the significance of her place in that history, Hallie.
Yamiche Alcindor, thank you very much. I want to check to see if we have our colleague Monica Alba, who is joining us as well. We don't at the moment, but we do have Michael LaRosa, who previously served as special assistant.
If y'all haven't heard, shocking news, Joe Biden has dropped out of the 2024 presidential election. If y'all haven't heard, Joe Biden has dropped out of the 2022 presidential election. Salute, Tim Mill. I see you, Tim Mill. Salute, salute. As of now, he has given his blessings to Kamala Harris. Now, we don't know the process. We will know the process in less than 24 hours. We will know what's next. We will find out if it's just going to be Kamala Harris. Is it because there are other Democratic candidates? Roman says that's good, but I fear who they nominate next. They'll share the same politics as Biden, but will be younger, more forward-thinking, and able to convert voters. And you might got a point, Roman. You might got a point. You might have a point. But I'm glad that Biden has stepped down. I'll say it again. My perspective on Trump versus Kamala. One is a lion, the other is a tiger. You lock the lion and the tiger in the cage together, whoever comes out, that cage is going to be the presidential debate. You're going to lock that lion and that tiger in that cage, which is the presidential debate, and we're going to find out. Tammy says, poor Joe. Yes, I wasn't a big fan of Joe. I will be honest. I wasn't a big fan of Joe. However, to see him in his health deteriorating, I work around, the ill. I work with the terminal ill, and I lose residents, I lose patients every day. And so it does something to me. So when I see Joe and I see, you know, his health deteriorating, I feel bad. I feel sorry for the guy. It's real life. Like Miss Jam says, it's real life. Appreciate you, Roman. Appreciate you, Roman. I mean, hey, I'm cold. I can be cold, but then I just got a soft spot. I mean, I'm human. Sometimes I wish I could turn the soft spot off. Sometimes I wish I could just be cold 100%. Every way, which way you could think of. I wish that I was just cold. But unfortunately, I got a soft spot. So when I see Joe and his health deteriorating, I feel sorry for the guy. I do. Roman says that's a good way to be, honestly. Tammy says, yeah, I used to as well, Shank. I feel you. So it's like, you know, you got that soft spot. Like, and with the kids, like I really got a soft spot for kids. You know, kids, the veterans, I got a real soft spot for the veterans. Like, so you mean to tell me this man or this woman went cross seas, this man and this woman, these veterans risked their lives. Appreciate that super chat, JJS. Appreciate that super chat, JJS. They risked their lives. They risked losing their family back here in the States. And they went to fight in these wars that didn't even concern them. They went and risked their lives and freedoms for this BS, you know, that they don't know what's going on. And when they come back to this country, years later, most of your homeless people that y'all know are veterans. Most of the people that you see that's homeless did time in the military. Salute, Mr. Hello. Oprah is going to join. No, it wouldn't be a good idea for Oprah to join the presidential. Ms. Jan says the same way we felt for Trump last week is the same way we feel for Joe. It's being heard. Right. You know, when you seen Trump grab his ear and he go down, at that time we didn't know what it was, but and then when you see them stand him up and he got, you know, leaking from his ear, you like, oh, snap. Oh, snap. See, I was raised to give a man a fair shot, you know, and I also was raised to not to be a sore loser. If you beat me fair and square, you got me. You got me. Roman says, I could tell you tons of stories. My mom works at the CA hospital with retired Vietnam vets. Truly shameful how they're treated at the VA. And you just look at them, man, and you be like, and you got to give them the shirt off your back. You got to give them the seat that you're seating in. You got to get them something to eat. You got to cater to them because you know that they are first line of defense. This man right here that you don't know, this woman right here that you don't know was in another country risking their lives for you. Eye of the Storm says crooks had one job. I'm just saying. I'm not going to hold y'all that much longer. Ms. James says they were the frontline warriors for the U.S. And that's facts, Ms. James. Courtney says, Shank, why was I tying out? You know you can't use profanity in the chat, Courtney. Come on now, Courtney. I'm reading your comments and I'm like, Courtney know better. You know you can't use no cuss words in the chat, Courtney. James says, Shank, have you seen New York lately? A third world country? Yeah. I'm peeping New York. But back to Courtney, you know you can't use no profanity in the chat. Courtney gonna say I didn't. You know that. Well, let me say what you think, cause this ain't the Mo 3 sector. You know I'm an affiliate of the Mo 3 sector. You know you can't use no cuss words in no chat, Courtney. I'm coming, y'all. $800, all our major cities, third world right now. Mr. Hello says, when I saw Trump's fist in the air, the first thought I had was that this ear shooter just won the election for Trump. Boy, you hell, Mr. Hello. You hell. Mr. Hello said the ear shooter just won the... Roman says it'll get worse before it gets better. It can't get no worse. Shoot. It can't get no worse, Roman.
With illegal aliens, Americans are being squeezed out of the labor force and their jobs are taken. By the way, you know who's taking the jobs that are created? 107% of those jobs are taken by illegal aliens. And you know who's being hurt the most by millions of people pouring into our country? The black population and the Hispanic population, because they're taking the jobs from our black population, our Hispanic population, and they're also taking them from unions.
So you basically heard him say. Now, once again, you know, they always twist the narrative. Ms. Jan says, we are going to have a good competition. Can't wait. He said the jobs. Let me run it back for y'all again. Let me run it back for y'all. And let's listen to what he's saying about the illegal immigrants taking the jobs. They're taking the jobs from. He ain't say nothing about black jobs. Listen.
Today our cities are flooded with illegal aliens. Americans are being squeezed out of the labor force and their jobs are taken. By the way, you know who's taking the jobs that are created? 107% of those jobs are taken by illegal aliens. And you know who's being hurt the most by millions of people pouring into our country? The black population and the Hispanic population, because
he said that you know who is being hurt. The black population and the Hispanic population. Let me run it back.
Into a country, the black population and the Hispanic population, because they're taking the jobs from our black population, our Hispanic population.
He said they're taking the jobs from our black population and our Hispanic population. He didn't say nothing about black jobs. Let me run it back. Listen, y'all. He said they're taking the jobs from the black population and the Hispanic population. Listen.
Those jobs are taken by illegal aliens. And you know who's being hurt the most by millions of people pouring into our country? The black population and the Hispanic population, because they're taking the jobs from our black population, our Hispanic population, and they're also taking them from unions. The unions are suffering because of it.
Did he lie? Did anybody detect the lie? I'll wait. Did he lie? He didn't lie. He kept it 100. And we know how they're taking these jobs. We know. Now, is it their fault? No, it's not their fault. Because if we was in that predicament, we would be the same way. Ms. Jan says no shame. He cleaned it up this time. It was in the debate. He said black jobs. Okay, Ms. James. Okay, Ms. James. Tracy says you're right. Unbelievable. For a standing president can drop out 4 months before the election. Wow. Okay. So so he cleaned it up. Okay. Now, how do y'all feel about him cleaning it up? Let's just go there. How do y'all feel about him cleaning it up? Rico says, I detect him protecting the country. 800 Lane says, taking LOL given he mean. 10 Mil says, looked a big mess to me. Rico Dubs, 107 Facts. Courtney says, I am to the point where I am scared for our country and our people. We are all lost and we look to the white man like a lying prick, orange guy, and is sick. I am scared for my kids, especially my son. Rico says, proof he knows how to run a country. I mean, so what's the main implications of this? I'm in the UK and don't understand it. Tammy says, Project 2025 wants to get rid of the unions. So if Trump becomes president, drop a one. If Trump becomes president, if y'all feel as though this country is doomed. Drop a 1 if you feel if Trump becomes the president, the country is doomed. Drop a 2 if Kamala becomes president, if you think the country is doomed. Drop a 1 if you think Trump being the president, the country is doomed. This is really happening. Drop the 1. Tammy dropped the 1. Tracy says no. Drop a 2 if you think, because one or the other going to become the president. I can put some money on that. Either Trump or Kamala is going to be the president. Jersey says we should all just be glad it ain't going to be Biden. Courtney says Ms. James cleaned it up clearly. 800 dropped the 1 1,000 times. Breezy, I see you, Breezy. Salute, Breezy. Breezy dropped the 2. Salute, Sharon. Salute, Sharon. 800 dropped the 2 1,000 times. Courtney dropped the 1. So we pretty much doomed. Rico dropped the 2. Courtney dropped the 1 1,000,000 times. James dropped the 2. So what do we do? What do we do, y'all? Roman says Project 2025 is 900 pages long. I don't think you're going to find an answer to satisfy your curiosity here. So it just seems like, should we pray? Should we just leave and go to another country? How y'all feel about moving to another country? Do y'all think that that's the answer? Move to another country? Handbone dropped the 2. Y'all think we should just move to another country? 800 Lane says Cornell West, my guy. Roman says hell no. Jersey dropped the 2. Handbone says, yes, move to Canada. I was thinking about moving to Canada. Stanky Bottom dropped the 2. Tim Mills says, where is good? This is really happening. We should vote, not move. Who we going to vote for? Who we going to vote for? Sun and Moon says, Project 2025 has been summarized. They key topics of it. You can look on Google. It has all the bad, controversial parts in the summary. Tammy says, Shank, that's all we can do is pray because only God can fix this. Stanky Bottom says, well, I'm a Trumpster. William says, vote Trump. Get with the movement and improve with unity. How many of y'all feel like William feel? Vote for Trump and get with the movement and improve with unity. Roman says, I'd revolt before I leave. I believe in what the founding fathers believed. They came here to escape the authoritative European governments. Ms. James says, no, demand more from America by really venting your senators and governors that you are voting for. That's a good point, Ms. James. That's a good point. Handbone says, wearing my Trump hat right now. Tim Mills says, you won't find the answers here in the UK. We in a bigger mess than you. Wow. Courtney says, William, unity. Trump don't believe in unity. Roman says, good point. Santana says, leave 600 years and we're still talking. Remember, they stole and killed for greed, creating trauma upon trauma. Tamil says, Shank, who do you endorse? Nobody right now, Tamil. Nobody right now. William says, have you seen his rally? I say he loved. I've been to a Trump rally, y'all. The list goes on and on. Tammy says, Handbone says, let's also bring up the fact of the border. Emmett says, Trump is in. It's a done deal. I got one more clip I'm going to run for y'all, and then we're going to get out of here.
Trump has made a surprising announcement regarding immigration policy. If re-elected, he plans to automatically grant green cards.
No, I don't want that. James says the border is the #1 topic. No, I don't want that.
Slammed President Biden for allowing migrants into the country, claiming they're taking, quote, black jobs.
The fact is that his big kill on the black people is the millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're taking black jobs now, and it could be 18, it could be 19, and even 20 million people. They're taking black jobs, and they're taking Hispanic jobs, and you haven't seen it yet, but you're going to see something that's going to be the worst in our history.
We're joined right now by Howard University political science professor.
Tracy says, I worked for Trump in Atlantic City. He wasn't a bad boss.
Professor Clarence Lissane. His latest book is titled $20 and Change, Harriet Tubman and the Ongoing Fight for Racial Justice and Democracy. Also author of The Black History of the White House. His piece in The Nation is headlined, Don't Believe Trump When He Claims He's Not Racist. Trump does not deserve a single black or Hispanic vote. Nada
None. Professor Lusane, thanks for joining us again on Democracy Now! Can you talk about the point that he is making? We just had a long discussion about immigration. President Trump pitting Latinos, immigrants against African Americans in this country, and the significance of this.
So thank you for having me. So as your previous guest just pointed out, it's important to know that this idea of replacement theory, that whites are being threatened by these cultural invaders, is something that the Donald Trump wing of the party has been using ever since Donald Trump stepped onto the national stage. The article I wrote in The Nation was to point out that we don't have to memory hold what Donald Trump's history of racism has been, but more importantly, also who has supported Donald Trump. Ever since he stepped onto this stage, every avowed racist in the country, Ku Klux Klanners, neo-Nazis, avowed fascists, have backed Donald Trump. And he's been able to get away with that kind of support because in many ways the media has evaded questioning him about that. But this has become the way in which the Republican Party in 2024, party of grievance, extremism, and racism, operates and functions. And so it's really critical to not let this memory be lost of Donald Trump's policies and behavior over the last number of years and how that has permeated the Republican Party.
As you point out in a recent interview in Time magazine, Trump suggested the problem was really anti-white racism. If you look right now, there's absolutely a bias against white people, and that's a problem, Trump said. Your response, Professor Lusane?
So Trump, again, is leaning into his base. And what the data is showing is that for at least the last 10 years or so, if not even before then, that a majority of whites, and particularly Republican voters, believe that racism in this country exists against white people. That black people, that Latinos, that Asians basically do not have issues with institutional or systemic racism, but it's actually whites that are being targeted. And this isn't just kind of rhetoric. This is actually manifesting itself both in the Republican Party platform and Republican Party activists. Stephen Miller, for example, who your earlier guest referenced, heads up America First Legal. Its entire purpose is to go after what they argue are racist attacks against whites. So America First Legal has filed lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit against private sector entities that they claim are discriminating, particularly against white males. And so when Donald Trump says that anti-white racism is actually a thing, he is very serious that his second administration, if he comes to power, will operate on that. He has pledged, for example, that he will end every DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion program that exists anywhere in the federal government. Now, that's not just talking about specific programs about diversity, that's talking about any effort in any branch of government to recognize that there needs to be inclusive hiring, there needs to be inclusive policies. So this is a very real tactic on the part of Donald Trump. The problem is that it actually conflicts with what they're trying to do and win black voters. Donald Trump recognizes that in the swing states, in Georgia, in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, in Wisconsin, in all of these key battleground states, the black vote has been extremely decisive in helping the Democrats. So they have to figure out a way to either drive down the vote for the Democrats or, if possible, if they can win votes. But that's very difficult to do given Donald Trump's record in history.
On Monday, Democracy Now!'s Renee Feltz was on the floor of the convention. She spoke to a man wearing a large cowboy hat who was attending the RNC with members of the Florida delegation.
Larry Wilcoxon from Florida.
And are you here as part of the delegation?
I'm just here.
All right. Can you say a little bit about why you're here?
I'm here to support the president, Donald J. Trump. That's the only reason why I'll come here.
It sounded like you might have even been talking to people like you, his supporters, when he spoke about preserving black jobs. Can you talk about, what that might have meant to you? What's the difference between black jobs and other jobs, for example?
See, I think a lot of stuff be taken out of context. And what he mean was just mid-level jobs. I mean, that's just the truth. Mid-level jobs, as far as like trades, those are mid-level jobs to me.
Did y'all hear him? Let me backtrack. Listen to the brother.
It sounded like you might have even been talking to people like you, his supporters, when he spoke about preserving black jobs. Can you talk about, what that might have meant to you? What's the difference between black jobs and other jobs, for example?
See, I think a lot of stuff be taken out of context. And what he mean was just mid-level jobs. I mean, that's just the truth. Mid-level jobs, as far as like trades, those are mid-level jobs to me. And so that's what he meant. And yes, a lot of illegals are coming over here, a lot of migrants coming over here, and that's the jobs they're getting. Because a lot of our own employers, they hiring those individuals for cheaper wages. And that's just the truth.
A lot of the employees are hiring them for cheaper wages. I mean, come on. That's why I said for the immigrants that come to this country and talk bad about black Americans, why black Americans don't want to work. I'll work their job. Black Americans are lazy. Black Americans don't. Let me tell y'all something. I've been quoted plenty of times. And any and everybody that worked on a 9-to-5 with me, they'll tell you, he got Mexican in him. The Mexicans even said, you got Mexican in your blood. You got Mexican in your blood. But I'm not the only black person that works. We works. We work. Black people will work. Not all of us now, because it is some lazy-ass black people. I work with some of them. But the point that I'm making is, when it comes to this whole demonstration of black people when it comes to working, y'all got to understand that our ancestors was forced to work for free. That's an issue right there. And I know for the slick ones is going to say, yeah, Shank, that was your ancestors that was forced to work for free. That wasn't y'all. Y'all wasn't forced to work for free. We wasn't forced to work for free. However, we're put to work on jobs that are paying us. Y'all know what I'm getting ready to say. We have jobs. Black people have jobs today, unlike our forefathers and foremothers was forced to work, free labor. But the labor that we get paid for, well, we get paid crumbs. So you have to take this in consideration and understand when it comes to us as black people in the whole workforce. We getting crumbs. We getting cheated out of, and I've seen it several times. And I know y'all have bear witness to it. They'll turn around, same job. They'll turn around and pay a white person $3, $4, $5 more, some $10, $15 more than what they pay us. So before you can understand, before you can mention anything, and this is why I tell the immigrants, learn the culture first. When you come to this country, learn us first. What's the best way to learn us? Talk to us. But most of y'all walk right by us, and most of y'all turn y'all nasty ass, snotty ass noses up when a black person walk past y'all. I see it. I witness it all the time. But when a white person walk by you, y'all break y'all necks to say hi to that white person. I see it all the time. black person walk across the street, y'all see the black person walking, y'all speed up on purpose. White person walk across the street, y'all slow down. Come on, come on, come on. Come on with the bullshit. It's true. And until immigrants, until y'all realize this, until y'all see it for what it is, it's going to continue. But as an immigrant, I know some of y'all walk around with y'all chests on swole. Some of y'all can't wait. Some of y'all can't wait to physically harm a black person. Some of y'all can't wait. Some of y'all can't wait to disrespect a black person. But I got news for y'all. All of us aren't weak. See? And for the most part, all of us aren't lazy. I can tell you that now. But I'll say it again for the immigrants. Y'all benefit off of what civil rights? You benefit off of the civil rights that our ancestors marched for. That's how y'all benefit. That's how y'all get the things that y'all get through the Civil Rights Act. So before you look down on a black person, before you turn your snotty, nasty nose up on a black person, you better think that black person that you're about to turn your nose up on. And you better remember, and you better learn American history, not black history. Learn American history. Because even though they give us the shortest month in the year, which is February, they call that Black History Month, the shortest month. But there can be no American history if we're not included in American history. We built this country. Am I lying? Most of y'all immigrants don't even know that. Most of y'all don't even know the history of this country. Most of y'all immigrants, not only immigrants, most of y'all white people, as well as the immigrants. See, I got to give y'all a history lesson 101. But most of y'all don't even understand that they didn't bring slaves from Africa to this country. They didn't bring slaves from the shores of them islands. They brought doctors. Oh, yeah. They brought teachers. Oh, yeah. They brought scientists. Oh, yeah. They brought archaeologists. Sure, sure. Contrary to what y'all have been taught, that we were porch monkeys running around in the jungle, nah. They brought the best. When I say the best, they brought the best. Our people, before we came here, were very skillful. That's how we were able to build the country. Do y'all realize there was no navigation system? Do y'all realize? Because most of y'all are millenniums and y'all go by the GPS. Let's go back to a time when they didn't have no GPS. They didn't have no maps. They didn't have none of that. So ask yourself, how did those black people that were slaves, how did they make it from the South? How did they make it all the way up north? Ask yourself that. Learn about Harriet Tubman. Salute, Kabina. I see you, Kabina. Salute. Learn about Harriet Tubman. Learn about, and I want y'all to really, really listen. Learn about Elijah Muhammad. You ever heard of Elijah Muhammad? Sure, you heard of Elijah Muhammad. You heard of Malcolm X. Well, who brought Malcolm X from the darkness to the light. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I could go on and on and on and on. But I'll say it again. For the immigrants, don't you ever turn your snotty nose up to a black person when you walk past a black person. You give that black person the utmost respect, because it's because of us. The civil rights movement is the reason why you get the benefits that you get. I appreciate everybody for pulling up. Salute. Do I want to run this little clip? Let's finish off this clip and then I'm going to let y'all get out of here.
Your response, Professor Clarence Hussein.
So when Donald Trump refers to the black people, and he refers to black jobs, what he said is that his view of where black people fit in this country, in employment and culture and otherwise, is always at the bottom. Donald Trump never has anything positive to say about the black community. He never talks about black doctors, for example, or black engineers, or black accountants, or black people who are in many, many different professions up and down the spectrum of employment. He essentially sees through racist-tended eyes black people at the very, very bottom. And that's how he sees immigrants, to be more precise, immigrants of color. And so that's the conflict that he's trying to pitch. But what the data shows, of course, what the Department of Labor shows is that at every single area of occupation, you have black people, you have Latinos, you have Asians, kind of across the spectrum. And so Donald Trump, though, feeds into this narrative among conservatives that there are categories of work for certain people, and that is how he then sees attacking immigrants and creating, again, this conflict between the black community and the immigrant community.
On Tuesday night, Democracy Now!'s Messiah Rhodes caught up with Forget Blow, a pro-Trump rapper who debuted his video Trump Trump Baby featuring Amber Rose at the RNC a day after she spoke. This is what he said to Messiah.
I've been supporting Trump like die hard since 2015. Before that, I was with Rick Ross, French Montana, a lot of big name rappers, and a lot of big name songs. So I was already very successful in that side of the industry, grinding my way in. But Donald Trump was like the boss, you know what I mean? He's getting money. He's a rapper's dream, He's out here now dodging bullets, getting indictments. He's a real rapper. But, back in 2016 when he came in, it was just about proving people wrong. That's one thing I'm big on. Nobody believed that he would be the president. He knocked that door down, right? Was very successful. He made a lot of money. He's got the beautiful wife, nice cars. So just being young, trying to chase that dream and be like Trump, and just have some positive role model to look up to. And even though one time we didn't see eye to eye, I could bring you in. Amber Rose, she spoke yesterday. She's a model. She was big against Trump for years. I have a new video that just came out with her, a song called Trump Trump Baby. She's on the song. It's number 8 on Billboard right now. But the thing is, a lot of people don't realize, we need new voters. Right? So when these people, we're out here making all this content for Donald Trump and, trying to sell Donald Trump on people and they're not buying it, and then they finally buy it 5 years later and we're like, boo, you can't do it. That hurts us. We need to get the new voters. We need new voters. We need to give people equal opportunity.
Soon after they spoke, rapper Forget Blow and Amber Rose.
Salute everybody. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Salute everybody.